It's a rivalry that began back in the days of the Hatfields and McCoys. And while the families of Eugene Skinner and Elias Briggs didn't spend their early days shooting at each other from across the Willamette River, the two men's arrivals in the Willamette Valley laid the groundwork for a rivalry some people say is still running over 100 years later.
This is a topic people have laughed about and argued about for years.
We share a lot of things here, just proximity and the rivers and such, but the cities have different destinies and have different histories.
To the outsider, they might appear to be sister cities, joined at the hip by a river, a freeway, and humble beginnings that date back to late 1846, when Eugene Skinner made his way to the top of a prominent Willamette Valley butte.
Got up on top of the place we call Skinner Butte, looked around, he says, this is perfect for Eugene Skinner's family. It's beautiful like being in a bird's nest when you look all around, see all the mountains around it.
Not much more than a year later, a neighbor sprung up to his east.
It's not named after another city named Springfield. It's actually named because there is truly a spring and a field of springs. This certain spring that's there is actually underneath some apartments, I think, down close to 2nd and A Street.
The Briggs over there very quickly got to work building the Springfield Mill Race.
And with that, the race was on.
Both of these places in the early 1850s building mill races.
A lot of what you see today with the mill race was hand dug by Elias Briggs.
And actually Springfield probably finished this first, and as a result Springfield got a bump because it ended up with a sawmill and a wonderful flouring mill.
Despite getting a jump in the lumber and flour businesses, Springfield still lagged in size and population. Skinner's earlier arrival to the area played a vital role in giving Eugene a head start. That in turn helped the city land the area's first post office, the first in a series of blows to Springfield's growth rate, which was already playing catch-up with its budding neighbor to the west.
Springfield didn't get a post office until 1868, 18 years later. That's a huge difference, and that shows how far ahead Eugene was at that time.
3 years after the post office, another big win for Skinner and his fellow Eugenians when they land the county seat, which brings with it the county courthouse. From there, things seem to snowball, even the Willamette River paying dividends in their favor.
Steamboats were crucial in those days. They found they only got to Eugene about half the time, about half the year. Springfield found they almost never could get a steamboat.
That meant Springfield was again reliant on Eugene for another vital service, as farmers had to head across the river to get their wheat shipped out.
But then, in 1871, came the really big blow. If you didn't get the railroad, you're dead, and your land value is going to go like this.
A fellow by the name of Ben Holliday had set out to build a rail line that started in Portland and headed south. The cities it passed through would thrive. The cities it didn't left behind in the dust.
So what this means is this thriving, bustling, dynamic little town of Eugene faced disaster if it didn't get the railroad.
As the story goes, Eugenians immediately promised to pony up $60,000 to help Holliday with construction costs. The tracks were laid down, and the rest is history, even if that history is still disputed.
I think the folks at Springfield are still bitter about this. They still feel that somehow the people of Eugene bribed Holliday to do this.
Then when talk of a state university came up, it was only natural that Eugene would land that too.
What the state said is they would give the state university to the first town that was able to build a building worth over $50,000.
1876, that building goes up.
So when that happened, that totally changed the relationship between Springfield and Eugene, because obviously at this point we are the state's leading university town. We're full of liberal professors like Thomas Condon and all these college kids, and they're raising questions about what's going on in Lane County.
Skinner beating Briggs to Lane County, the post office, the county courthouse, the railroad, and the University of Oregon. The 5 key developments that helped Eugene trump Springfield over 100 years ago, and whose lasting effects can still be seen and felt today.